One makes comments,
okay. We are live.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
We're here to talk about the Stewardship Principle. If you haven't heard, this book came out last month in May, and it is honestly a fantastic book. So I'm going to show you a couple of reviews that we've had in, and these are just a few of the ones that I found. Like, just quickly, like there were so many to pick from. But Heidi says, this book, game changer. When I turned the last page, I immediately thought, I need to read this again. It will reframe your thoughts, motivating you to adopt and master a stewardship mindset. The promise? You'll forever look at life differently. The reward? Peace.
I love that.
I think that's so true, though. Like, the reward is definitely peace. Okay. And let's do this one. So this one's by Becky, and she said, I couldn't put it down. The stewardship principle reframes your perspective and understanding of the stewardship assignments versus an ownership perspective. It changes the way you look at life and relationships and restores peace and joy. Thank you, Ganel-Lyn. You knocked it out of the park.
Sweet.
And then Ariel said, this book changed my thinking within one chapter, maybe even one page. I'm still finding connections in my daily life that stem from the principles discussed in this incredible book. I'm amazed at how quickly I could apply the things Ganel-Lyn talked about. It didn't take months to start feeling a difference in my life. It took a day or two. I'm so grateful I picked this up, and I'd recommend it to anyone and everyone.
Oh, I love that.
So those were just a couple of the many, many reviews that I combed through today. And they were all positive. Good.
I just got an email today from a reader in Missouri, and he's a grandpa and a dad. And I always love it when I hear from male readers, because I think, especially with Father's Day, our demographic of consumers tend to be women. But the cover of this book was very intentional to represent all walks of life, both male, female, young and old, teenagers. And that's because that's who I wrote it to, is everyone. But this grandpa dad was like, of course, his wife had to encourage him to read it. So she read it, and then she encouraged him. And then he's like, can we keep reading it? Like, can we just start all over? And I love that he like messaged me and just said it changed everything for me. And they're going through some of the grandparenting stewardships, and they have a son that is going through a divorce, and they're going through some financial struggles, right? And so it means so much to feel like a book that I have known was on my heart for so many years to write is having the impact I prayed that it would have. And I purposefully wrote it to not be overwhelming. I have a copy right here behind me, and I think we've talked about this, Jessica. It's like 68 pages. It's
very manageable.
Yeah. And so I love that people can read it in a night if they want to, but that it's enough. I tried to write it from enough perspectives that you could start applying it right away. But I'm already getting people saying, when are you going to write the follow-up? And so let's let it be out on the market a few more months before I start working on a follow-up. But I wanted to write it from a place of if you already know about stewardship, you will find application. If you don't know about stewardship, you will have a framework, a foundation, and an understanding to start. And that was challenging because, you can't make a book meet every need.
That's a broad range.
Yeah. And I didn't want it so broad that it didn't feel specific. And so I was really nervous through the whole process when God was like, it is time. You keep avoiding and you need to write this book. So the initial feedback from readers, I think we have John Hilton's endorsement on the book that it changed, the best books changed your life. And this book, he said, did that. And I was just so nervous that like, will people that don't know about this principle feel clear and inspired? And those that know about it, they've watched me on Real Talk, they've heard me speak about it at a fireside, will they feel like they came away with more? And somehow, I mean, Jessica, I feel like you were a good test market, but I feel like we did that in the book without it being so overwhelming that you can't hand it to your like college age daughter or your teenage son, as well as a grandpa, you know?
Right. Yes. I absolutely feel like you nailed it. Like it's great for all ages. And it's so true that it applies to all ages because, like you said, with this grandpa, he's filling these stewardships even later in life, where, an 18-year-old is kind of just starting out on their journey of
Yeah.
stewardships. So
Yeah.
it's applicable to everybody in
Yeah.
any point of your life. And I think you did a wonderful job of breaking down the bits where you could talk to each part of that life and that journey and maybe some of the responsibilities and stewardships that people will have throughout their life.
Well, and let me just say this as well. Like, I really hope if you're still trying to find a graduation gift, like my daughter just graduated high school and she's still getting cards in the mail. So I know for a lot of people that just had a graduating senior or a college graduate, if you're still trying to think of something, the price point on this, I don't know what special is being run for Father's Day, but it's under $7. Like it's not going to break the bank. So it's an under $10 gift. I wish someone had told me when I graduated college this information. Like I wish someone had told me, like I've known about stewardship for 10 years and I've been practicing it. I wish I had known it 30 years ago when I was newly married or just diagnosed with lupus or told that I mean, I'm telling you real stewardships that people know me, know this is the truth, like that we would never have children. And then my sister died by suicide. And I went through struggles in my marriage and we went through unemployment and then raising kids through teenage years. Like, I wish someone had told me because like one of the reviewers said, it brings peace. It doesn't take away the hard stuff of life, but it helps you reframe. That's why the subtitle's reframing your life, because it's it's really like a different way to look at the same stuff. It's the same stuff that we're all going through. And whether you're single or married or have kids or don't have kids, going through a divorce, I know we have a new family in our neighborhood, and he's a father of 4 under the age of 7, and he's newly divorced. No one's going to be excited about that. Like, no one's going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. You're going through a divorce and you're a single
Right.
dad.
Here's
But
another
just,
struggle in your life. Yay.
yeah, yeah. But then when we have weddings, we celebrate. Of course, there's certain stewardships that are joyful that we have parties for. But what about all the other stuff that we're all living with that are the parts of our lives that no one's throwing a party for it? Just in the few weeks I've gotten to know our new neighbor, I can tell that whether he understands stewardship or not, maybe I should get him a copy for Father's Day this weekend. But whether he understands this principle or not, he is seeing things as a stewardship. Like I can see his positivity, even though this is a really hard thing. So, like, especially if you know some single dads this weekend and there's not maybe a spouse to get a Father's Day gift, like I would love nothing more on Mother's Day than someone give this book to a single woman that hasn't had kids or a divorced dad, or right, like this is one of those things that, like, what do you give someone when the stewardship is they've lost a child or they've lost their job,
Less than
or
ideal.
yeah, like you can't just give a casserole and like fix that. And so
Right.
that's why I write books, is because for me, books like live on someone's side table by their bed until they're ready to open it. And flowers die and casseroles go bad. But like a book can
Words
be
live
like,
on forever.
yeah. And like the pages become your best friends. And as an author, that's the greatest feedback I can get from a reader is your books have become my trusted best friends. Like they're there for me when no one else understands what I'm going through. And that's why I write. That's why I wrote the very first book 9 books ago, because I had gone through some stuff that I wished I had one friend that I thought could understand it. And so I wrote a book about doing hard things in life. And I put a whole bunch of different hard things. And this book just feels, I think I've told you this before, Jessica, it feels like when people ask me what's your favorite book, I always struggle with that. This book feels like one of the reasons I came to Earth. And I don't mean to be dramatic, but it kind of is one of those things like if I hadn't written it, God would have been like, I told you to do something and you did not do your stewardship. Like it was in my heart. But I'm going to be honest, I'm with everyone that wants the follow-up book because since it's come out, this last year, while I knew I was working on it and we were doing the edits on it and we were picking the cover for it, I was living it still. Like I've had my own stewardship tutoring at a whole different level. Like I felt like I knew it enough to write it. And honestly, I think any true principle, you realize the older you get, the more you don't know. Like I don't, as much as I thought I knew, I was really tested about this principle. Like it was hard this year on some of my stewardships. So this isn't one of those like one and done. So whoever was the reviewer that's like, I want to start it all over, that's what I've already been hearing from readers. Like they finish it and then they start it again because then you have the foundation in your head. Then you reread it and you're like, you just keep applying the principle. It's not perfect. You practice it.
Yeah, you definitely, I feel like this is one of those books where you can read it at different points in your life and you're going to pull something different from it every single time you read.
Yeah.
Like it will be a brand new book every time you read it.
Yep.
Because there's so many different aspects of the stewardship principle
Yep.
that change as you grow and as your stewardships change, and
Yep.
you just will learn with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, this isn't like public, like social media public, but so if anyone's watching this live, you're getting the breaking news. People know that I have 2 kids and I was supposed to have 0 kids. And I have a boy and a girl, and my son, who's a return missionary, dropped out of college. And I write about hypothetical in the book of your grown kid drops out of college, and it wasn't so hypothetical, but it really was important when he called us over about 18 months ago and said, college isn't for me, that we understood this principle of stewardship, especially with adult children, which is a whole different parenting paradigm because my son's 24. Like I don't get to dictate where he goes and who his friends are and what he eats and who his teachers are and what clothes he wears. Like it's a different parenting paradigm. And so when he called us, as a parent, you want your kids to have options. You want your kids to be happy. And so his dad and I definitely had perspective on how we feel about education and what we wanted for him. But I immediately was like, I cannot go into ownership. If I go into ownership, I'm going to ruin this relationship. And I will say that if he was on this live, I've asked him, like, how did I stay in stewardship this last year? And he's like, honestly, Mom, you didn't say or do a lot. And I'm like, oh, people pay me to talk. What do you mean I didn't say anything? Like that feels counterintuitive to parenting, is like you want to go in and fix things and do things. But so he pulled out of college and really had made the statement like, I'm never coming back. Like, I don't think it's for me. And I honor that. Like, but it was hard because I also want my kids to have options, right? And so things progressed and he moved to Hawaii. And a lot of people that follow me on social media have followed that journey because he worked on a leprosy colony for 3 months. And then he's lived on Lanai. For the last year, he's been living in Hawaii. Well, just a couple of hours ago, he landed in Utah and he has moved back. And he's taking college classes again. Now, I only share that because there's been a lot of moments this last year and a half where conversations, if I go into ownership, which I talk about in the book, it would have been very easy to go into a place that created a wedge in our relationship. If, as a mom or a dad, it's easy to go into ownership with our kids. I think out of all the stewardships, that's the one that, especially with Father's Day coming up, that it's so easy to go into ownership. And I think especially dads, they're wired to fix
Fix. Yep.
what's going wrong, and moms are wired to protect. And, so I had to push against that. I had to keep practicing this principle this year of like, what does stewardship look like for a 24-year-old child? Like, it's not the same as it once was. And I haven't done it perfectly, but I've gotten support from friends when the ownership voice was getting so loud, because I knew if I went into ownership, no adult kid wants their parent to take over and own their life. Like, I don't want it. I'm 51 and I don't want my parents to go into ownership, right?
Yeah,
And so
definitely.
I've watched my son in his own stewardship journey and his choices to have this experience and then come back. I can honestly say a year and a half later, it was the right choice for him. But as a mom, if I had gone into ownership, I could have easily like I'm air quoting hypothetically, but it's not really hypothetical, lectured, tried to control, try to influence, try to persuade. And honestly, I don't have a formula. I just know that what I share in the book is what I tried to practice this year, which is I would fast, I would pray, I would talk to my friends. I would try to get really clear when the ownership voice was talking, because if the ownership voice was talking, that was not the time to call him, because I needed to be in stewardship when we
Yes.
talked.
Yeah.
And I would just say we're closer as a family. I think he feels like his choices are his choices. They're not because of what mom and dad are expecting.
Mhm.
And that's better because he needs to be the steward over his life,
Mhm.
Um, I've heard a lot of people when I first teach this principle or talk about it, they think I'm saying check out, like don't care about. And
Right.
that's the opposite. Um,
Mhm.
because the world really tells you to own your life and be in ownership. Stewardship is not saying you don't care. Stewardship is saying that you don't take ownership. And stewardship means you act wiser, you act in love, you act in faith, you don't act in fear and control. And that fear voice in my head is usually directing me in a way of ownership and comparison, right?
Right.
So I would just say, like, full breaking news, Cameron's stewarding in his own life has changed and he's back and he's on a different direction right now. And I would just say that the last year and a half, I'm so grateful I knew this information. Like, it has saved me from what could have happened. And I'm going to just say that I'm hesitant even telling this news because it doesn't tell me anything other than today, this is where things are at. Tomorrow, it could change. He could change directions. I could change feelings about things. And
Mhm.
hopefully, we both keep coming back to this stewardship idea of God is trusting him with certain stewardships. I write about my husband deals with ADD and so does my son. And if anyone's listening to this, that stewardship is a very interesting way of living life. And I've come to learn that I don't deal with it, but that stewardship is not good or bad. It's just a stewardship. And so that's the other thing I would say that I really believe about stewardship is that it pulls away that value of like, you went to college, that's good. If you didn't go to college, that's bad. Oh, you have ADD, that's bad. Oh, you are gifted and talented, that's, you know what I mean? It
Right.
Instead of labeling things good and bad, it's okay to say some stewardships are challenging. But what I've learned is those that have addiction, those that are in a wheelchair, I talk about my friend Chad Hymas, those that have kids that are, this is Pride Month, that deal with same sex attraction, LGBTQ community. I talk about a friend whose child has that stewardship in their life. And so whether you're a different culture, if you are unemployed or it, it removes this like labeling that we do of like, oh, look, God must love you because you have all these good stewardships, and God must not love you because you've got all these hard ones. It really allows us to have God show us things in a different way, you know? And I've learned that my son's ADD and my husband's is a stewardship. It's a, in my perspective, I share this in the book. The Lord kind of whispered to me while my son was on a mission that ADD is like omniscience. Like it's the baby version of maybe how God can see everything all at the same time and know maybe everybody that we know that has ADD is going to like do a fast track workshop for the rest of us in the next life about omniscience, because they're going to be like, I already know how to think about 50 things at the same time.
Right.
You know,
right? My mind's already been doing that forever. It's all good.
Yeah. So those are just some examples of like where I think stewardship has helped bridge maybe differences in relationships or changes in the direction of what our kids are choosing. So for the dads out there, like, I mean, you can get a new tie. There's some great ties at Siegel Book, but I would just say, why not give a gift that may change a relationship or heal a relationship or change the way your husband or your dad or your brother are feeling about their unemployment right now or their cancer diagnosis, or, you know, and also I think stewardship allows us to celebrate. I'm really grateful that I have 2 kids when I didn't think I was going to get to have kids, but I don't own them. You know, they're not mine. They were given to me to watch over. And it's not easy. You know, it's not easy to be a parent. It's not easy to be a child. I write a whole section on what it's like to be a kid. Like, we're like, whether you're a parent or not, you're probably a kid to somebody. I mean, if you're alive, you're a kid, you know, so we're all children of somebody. And that's not easy, especially if your parents, like my parents, deal with some struggles, some stewardships, right? That are difficult. So, you know, Jessica, I could talk about this for 10,000 hours. So
it's such an important topic. I've just been sitting here thinking, like, it really does change your mindset on how you approach the hard things in life, where it's you know, you're not looking at something and going, this is mine, this is my struggle, but it's an opportunity you've been given, and it helps you to grow, I think, and to not maybe appreciate those struggles, but to deal with them in a healthier mindset.
To reframe them. I mean, like, I've talked really openly about some of my stewardships that are challenging, one of which is chronic illness. I have lupus. It's really easy right now. I have some extreme pain in some places in my body and some fatigue where my spirit doesn't feel like it has lupus, but my physical body definitely does. One of the things I talk about in the book is that the ownership voice sounds like comparison. And so all of a sudden, all of the people I'm seeing on social media or my neighbors or my friends that are like training for a marathon, or they don't deal with these stewardships, right? If I'm not careful, does it mean I love waking up in pain? No. But I have come to learn so many things about my body, about my Heavenly Father, because he trusted me with this stewardship. And so, I mean, I start the whole book out about that parable of the talents. And we talk about the talent that gets buried, and I hypothesize it's because that servant was like, got the chronic illness one or the addiction one or the unemployment one.
It wasn't a shiny talent.
No, it wasn't the one everyone threw a party about. And so they were just like, okay, whatever, I'm going to just bury it in the ground. How embarrassing. Who wants to have this stewardship? And then the master comes back and is like, hey, what'd you do with it? And the one that had the one was like, I buried it. It was embarrassing. Why'd you give me a kid addicted to heroin? Why did you give me, chronic illness? Why did you give me divorce? Why did you give me whatever? And the master was like, you know what? Like, I trusted you to do something with that. And so I really believe that it doesn't eliminate the challenge, but it does inspire you to know how to approach it. And I do believe that the people that inspire me the most, and I try to really talk about my own life, but I spotlight a lot of other people and their stewardships in the book as well, not just my own stuff. That the people I admire the most are the ones that have become stewards of hard things. You know, my friend Todd, I talk about him, and he's taken addiction to a whole new level, and he's better like I'm better because he was an addict first. Like, like
Right.
think about the people that you're inspired by. They're not the ones that are just sitting back with no hard stewardships. They're the
Right.
ones that have
Skating through life.
yeah, they're the ones who God was like, here's your one talent. It's really hard. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. And they've done something with it. You know, I don't get inspired by the people that just like live on a yacht and don't have any hard stuff. I don't go to movies to watch their story. I don't read their books. I
Right.
don't follow them on social media, right? Like I'm
Right.
inspired by people that have gone through stuff. And so that's my hope, is that not that we don't respect and aren't sensitive to each other about what's hard, but that we start to see that God is really trusting us like as a
Mm.
servant. He's saying, I trust you that you're going to take this one embarrassing hard thing and you're going to make more of it if you see it as a stewardship. Or like we often do, we bury it, we're embarrassed, we're frustrated, we think God's forgotten us. You can read this book and dig it back up and do something with it. Like, if you're still alive, there's still time to reframe something in your life.
Right.
There's still time.
And I think that it also helps with how you look at people too, because
Mhm.
it's no longer like, oh, you have this trial in your life because you did this, but it's more, you were given this stewardship and I respect you for having to do that
And
and for owning it and, making it or not making it your own, but facing it and, working with that stewardship.
I think, Jessica, that's a really good, important point, because a lot of people see my life from a public perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like, you host a show, you write books, I'll be on live TV tomorrow. Like, you have 2 kids, you have a great marriage, right? All those things are true. They're stewardships. Like, they're stewardships. There's great parts of being a host of Real Talk and writing books and being on TV and speaking all over the world. And there's
Yeah.
there's challenges, right? If I'm not careful, the good stuff in my life also isn't, quote unquote, the good stuff can't be celebrated. And you can go into ownership about good things. All of a sudden, it's like my identity becomes how many books I sell or how many people watch an episode of Real Talk, right?
Right.
Instead of seeing those quote unquote good things as stewardships, you can easily go into ownership about the good stuff. Like we've talked about some of the hard stuff, but one of the ways this principle has blessed me is not to over identify with the good stuff either. Because in a heartbeat, tomorrow, Jessica, all that quote unquote stuff that people think is so cool about my life could be gone. It's not who I
Mm-hmm.
am. It's not my worth. It's what if I never sell another book, or no one likes, I don't get to host my show anymore, or no one asks me to come speak at their event, or whatever. What I have to do is the way I stay in joy and gratitude about the good things is that I can't over own them either.
Mm-hmm.
I can't I can't be like all of who I am is, because there's always an author that sells more books. There's always a podcaster. Trust me. There's a million come follow me podcasters. They all have, you know, more numbers or views or whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm not in stewardship about what's sacred about mine. And I'm not grateful for them because I'm in comparison about the good stuff just as much as the hard things. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why this principle is not like, this book isn't depressing. Would you say it's depressing,
Oh
Jessica?
no, no, not at all.
I
I was
feel
very
like it's
uplifting.
real. I feel like it's real. Like
Yes.
I talk about real stuff, and there's some hard things in there, but it's not going to depress the reader. It's going to, I hope, hopefully inspire them to really appreciate the hard things and the good things, not just focus on the hard stuff, you know?
Right. No, I totally agree. I think this book provides a lot of hope that, sometimes it's not going to be an immediate change, and sometimes it is a fast change, like one of the reviews said, but it gives you hope that there is a better way to look at it and a better way to handle it, and that you can get there.
Yeah. One of the funniest things I hear from readers that are like new to this is like, oh my gosh, it blows my mind. Like I can't look at anything the same. And I'm like, that's like, it makes me happy that it does. It literally reframes. They're like, all of a sudden I cannot see anything the same. And I'm like, that's the point. Like the clothes I'm wearing, the computer I'm using right now, it's not mine. All of it is stewardship. So if it breaks down, okay. Or like I dropped my phone. We just got back from Europe. I dropped my phone on the trip. It's not really mine. It's a stewardship. Like I'm in charge of taking care of it and charging it and paying my bill. But, I'm okay with the crack in it. My husband was insistent that we get a new one, but yeah. Yeah. I love hearing from readers that it's almost immediate that they can't unknow once they know, they can't unknow what they know.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's very true. Okay. So, like we said, it is a fabulous Father's Day gift, and it's available here at these locations. I still think if you have like Prime shipping, you can get it in time for Father's Day if you shop through Amazon, or if you have a local Desert Book or Seagull Book, they have them in stock and you can go in and grab one. It's honestly, it would be an amazing Father's Day gift. I truly think that. But yes, so if you want to meet Ganel-Lyn and have her sign the book, she has a couple of book signings coming up throughout the summer. So I'm going to show the little graphic.
That's weird. Look, Jessica, if
I know you have, like, you can like hide your whole body. But
yeah, here, I'm going to hide myself so you don't see two of me.
Okay, so July 9th from 1 to 3, Ganel-Lyn will be at Riverton at the Desert Book. And then July 15th, 5 through 7 p.m., she'll be at the American Fork Seagull Book. And then July 27th, 5 through 7, Desert Book in Orem. And then August 13th, 11th through 1, Desert Book in Cottonwood. And that's their grand reopening. So that should be pretty cool. I think they have some other stuff going on.
Yeah, and if people want the exact addresses, they can go to my website, which is just my first name. So Ganel-Lyn.com. And there's actual map addresses for each of those. Cause like I know in Orem, we have multiple locations. There's only one Seagull Book in American Fork, but if they're struggling to know exactly where to go, there's more information on my website.
And we'll probably have a couple more signings pop up throughout
the
fall.
Yeah. We just wanted to make sure this summer that sometimes when a new book comes out, it's pushed. You hear a lot about it. There's book signings right that first month. And we really wanted this to be a good summer read and what people talk about at their family reunions. And, so I really wanted to do, especially after the last 2 years where we haven't had book signings in person. And everyone knows I'm a hugger. I just did a post about it on social media. Like whether you're a hugger or not, you're probably going to get a free hug from me, whether you buy one of my books or not. So I would love the chance that if you're in Utah this summer, especially in July and August, when I know a lot of readers and viewers of Real Talk maybe in Utah. I've had a lot of people ask when I'll be doing signings outside of Utah, and we will plan for that in the months to come. But for this summer, I'm going to try to stick to being at home a little bit more. It's the last summer of my daughter being at home and before she moves out. And so I'm excited that we have so many locations in Utah that we can do. And a lot of people come to Utah in the summer. So I'm hoping that even if you don't live in Utah, one of those dates will work with when you're in town for a family reunion. I'd love to meet you in person.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
usually I have candy at my table when I do a book signing.
Right. Or you brought cookies a couple times.
Yes, I did.
Those look fabulous.
I did on the pop-up book signings. Those were super fun. I think in the fall I'm going to do another pop-up. That was so fun to just like a half hour at like 5 different locations in one day and just run in, bring cookies, sign some books. And that was super fun. We have to do that again. So
yeah, those are fun. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us.
yeah.
And go pick up your copy of the Stewardship Principle
Yeah.
for Father's Day weekend.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Happy Father's Day, everyone.